Hey, in this video I want to look at the rigid body component and the on trigger enter and on collision enter events. So I am in Unity, and what I've set up is just a sphere, a ball, and a platform. Nothing really going on here. What I would like to do is have these two things collide with each other. And if I just press play after I've put these in the scene, nothing happens. They're just floating there because these are just static physical bodies. They have colliders on them, so if there was something moving, something else with a rigid body component, then it would bump into them and they would stay still while the thing that bumped into them would bounce off. So I want them to act a little more physically, so I'm going to put a rigid body component onto this sphere. And so the rigid body component gives it mass, it gives it the ability to collide with things and bounce off of them, and it has gravity as well, so I can make sure that it will fall and collide with other things in the scene. So now it just lands right on top of that box. So I want to have these things kind of respond to that collision and do something about it. So I'm going to make a new C# script, collision test. All right. So I don't need any of this stuff because I just want on collision enter. So there are three collision events: on collision enter, on collision stay, for when a collision is ongoing, if things are touching each other for multiple frames, and on collision exit when they finally separate. On collision enter is the most common one to use. So let's just print something out. A collision happened. All right, so this should be called now when those two objects touch each other. After I put that script on the ball. All right, or one of them. So what's cool is that it doesn't matter which object you have the that function on collision enter. It will be called on both of the objects if they have it. This is a property of the mono behavior that it will look to see if it has that function implemented, and it'll call it if you have it. So whichever of these objects you want to respond to that collision and do something extra, you can put that function in a script on it. So now I've put the collision test script on the ball. There we go. A collision happened. And now when I lift this while it's still running, I can get that to happen more times. So objects in Unity, the physics engine will only have them collide if at least one of them has a rigid body component. If neither of them have a rigid body component, they can just be moved through each other if you change their positions and such. But with a rigid body component, they will collide. And this is an important thing. If you notice that a collision is not working the way you expected, make sure that there's a rigid body component on one of the objects. So rigid bodies, they can be they can be completely static, which is usually when you don't have a rigid body component. But when you add the rigid body component, it makes them dynamic. They can move and they can be affected by forces. If you want them to still have essentially infinite mass and stay still, you can make them kinematic, which means that you can still move them around on purpose, but they won't bounce off of anything, or things hitting them won't move them. All right, so what I'd like to do is to maybe try destroying the platform when I hit it. So let's try that. Destroy, and I'll destroy whatever I hit. The collision object here, collision dot, has a other. So this is the, it's obsolete. Okay, collider, that's the one I'm looking for. So collision.collider is the other object, the other object's collider component. So if I wanted to destroy something, this would only destroy the collider component. I want to destroy the game object. So collision.collider.gameObject is the other object that it's colliding with. So this is going to be one dangerous sphere right now. And you'll notice as it destroys things, it still resolves the collision. So destroying something immediately in your onCollisionEnter event doesn't disable the collision. It just destroys the object, and the collision still happens as if it wasn't destroyed that frame. So now it is falling and destroying things and hitting the ground and destroying the ground as well. So to kind of protect the ground, I need to be a little more specific about what objects it should be able to destroy. And so I can use the tag system to do that. If I select the platform and give it a tag, let's add a tag that's like destroyable. And then give that tag to the platform. Then in my script, I can check to see if that tag is on there. If collision.collider.compare tag. Oops. Destroyable. Then we can destroy it. Right? That seems good. So then if this object has that tag, then it'll get destroyed, and if it doesn't, then it'll be safe. And that means most of my objects won't get destroyed by it. So, like the ground. All right. So now, that's how onCollisionEnter works. And I want to check out the other option we have. Let me change this to a trigger. So the platform now is marked as a trigger in its collider component. And triggers are meant to be a volume where if things enter it, you get notified that something has entered it. So that means it's not going to perform collisions as it normally would. So when we run this, the ball is going to fall, and it falls right through the platform, doesn't even touch it. I still got my collision callback, but that's from the ground. So it hit the ground, but the collision event did not happen with the box. So in this case, what I want to use is onTriggerEnter. And of course, there's onTriggerStay and onTriggerExit as well. This one gives me the collider directly, called other. And so I can say things like destroy other.gameObject. And then I can kind of have my same behavior as before. But since triggers don't collide, this is not going to, the ball is not going to stop. It's not going to slow down when it hits that thing. It's just entering the zone that is defined by the volume of that box, and then calling that function on the script and destroying the box. So there you go. This is really useful for telling when things get hit, when things bounce off of each other. Maybe two cars hit each other, and you want them to take some hit point damage or something. You can do it that way with an onCollisionEnter. And if you're using triggers, you might have projectiles that are marked as triggers. And when they hit something, or you can detect it with onTriggerEnter, and you can remove hit points that way. And do all those other things that you might do when you hit something. If you take away hit points, maybe check to see if you ran out of hit points, and then if you did, destroy the object. You can award points or what have you. So that's about it. and I'll see you later.